Here we go. Hi, everybody. We are live. Welcome to everyone. So let us know who's here by commenting into the chat. You can let us know maybe where you are connecting from. We're so glad to have you join us today. It's Coach Diana, as you would have seen in the email, and she so graciously allowed me to join her. So why don't you say hi, Diana, and get us started.
Well,
Hi,
we just want to
everybody.
welcome you to after Christmas week. This is the interim between Christmas and New Year's, where
Yeah.
I don't know if there's so much happening or not so much happening, but we're really glad that we get to be here with you today. So as we are letting listeners hop on, I see we've got 21 people out there. If you want to communicate in the chat, we're going to be monitoring that as well. We're going to be looking for hi Julie. Julie's on. Renee. Mary Jane from Rhode Island. Wow. And
Hi,
Karen.
Sherry,
Okay,
Molly.
Karen's here helping us today. Thank you, Karen. Sherry, Molly Susan, hello. Wow.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Mary Jane. You're on with Diana, and this is Coach Jen as well. And we're going to be talking about dealing with disappointment during the holidays. And I'm wondering if you all relate to this topic and what you might have to say or comment about your disappointment during the holidays, because we want to make sure that we speak to you. We do have some ideas and some thoughts that we'd like to share with you and leave with you today, but we also want to interact and hear from you.
Yeah, so let's just do some quick sort of housekeeping stuff as we continue to welcome people to join us. So Merry Christmas and almost Happy New Year to you all. We are broadcasting live to Leslie's public page and to YouTube. So we always want to just kind of give a reminder to anybody that has joined us previously and to those that may be new to us. This is public, meaning that whatever you do post in the comments can be seen and searched for by many others. So if you feel the need to reach out to us, there's a couple of ways. One, use the comment section by all means, and maybe post on behalf of a friend or something like that. But Karen also puts in the chat there, I thank you, Karen, where she mentions the https leslievernick.com/question. So that's more of an anonymous way and it's a way for us to track the more direct questions that you will have for Coach Diana and I, which we always leave for time, either as it comes up during, but definitely towards the end of our hour together with you today. So today's topic is, as we already mentioned, is about dealing with disappointment during the holidays. So we'd like to invite you to maybe just not even speaking for yourself, just in general, what you think might be disappointing in particular over this holiday season. So we're kind of partway through. There's been the build up to Christmas. We've had Christmas, and now we're heading into the new year. If you would just indulge us and just dump into the chat what you think might be disappointing for someone as we go into this season. So Diana, why don't you lead us off? What do you think you've experienced or you think other people have experienced for disappointments during this time of the year?
I think one of my favorite movies, and I thought about this weekend, is my daughter, I told you before we started, got stuck in Chicago. Was a bunch of kids got stuck in the airport for the holidays. I cannot remember the name of it, but boy, did they have fun in the airport. I don't think our people out there were having as much fun, but I think I noticed in the chat that people were stuck. They couldn't get home. We didn't know when we would be together. So there's dealing with, the storm and having all of these plans. And I know ours was delayed. I had planned to work to hit back to work on Tuesday, and we didn't have our Christmas with my daughters until Monday because of the holiday nightmare with airports and airplanes, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that sometimes we deal with unmet expectations, whether it's the expectation that we'll all arrive on time and that we're all going to be together. Or maybe, I don't know about you, but I see a lot of postings all over the internet, mainly on Facebook, some on Instagram and that, of what family looks like. And people are posting pictures in their pajamas, as a unit. They're with grandchildren, and I don't think that's the reality for a lot of people. And it might appear to be the majority of what family looks like. But I don't know about you, Jen, but my family looks a little bit different these days.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't meet those kind of expectations. And it's really easy to feel like you're missing something if it doesn't match up.
Yeah.
The other thing I think some of the disappointments is, during the holidays is maybe you enter into some relational drama, because whenever we meet with others, there's drama. I see in the feed, people are ill, so
Mm-hmm.
they have to quarantine still, you know. And I don't know about you, Jen, but even before the holidays come, I start feeling the emotional impact of my loved ones that are no longer here.
Yes.
Specifically, my aunts, my uncles, my mom and my dad. And then I start getting nostalgic about what it was like when I was growing up. I have all of those ideas and images. In fact, I bought a little thing from Lowe's. It's a little diner that kind of lights up. It just reminds me of Christmas in the 60s, because for me, that's like a warm feeling.
Yeah.
But I think, as we were preparing for this, I was reading, pulling up some quotes for us to share in that. And ladies, this is a disclaimer. I did not read this book. We just pulled some quotes from this book, You Can't Go Home Again by Thomas Wolfe.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Pull some of those out. I'll see if I can copy some of them and put them in the chat, because Kieran, I don't know that you'd be able to keep up with some of these because go ahead. I think that's great.
Well, I feel like the truth is I can't go home again. Like in my mind, the memory of holidays gone by, I can't go there. We don't even have our family home, as my mom passed a couple of years ago. So even if you do have a home to go to, it's not going to be the same as you imagine it in your mind. And I think that can lead to some holiday blues, disappointment, sadness, right? I know you, Jen, your Christmas is very different this year. You're in a whole new location, so you had to figure out the logistics of how do I entertain in a small space, right?
Yeah.
So I also think that we need to have special care and caution for us in this interim time. Like the Christmas gathering is over. Now we're moving into the new year. And so we're going to talk a little bit, I hope, about how do I deal with the letdown. There's always a letdown. Like, I didn't want to leave. Like, I went and stayed at my daughter's house Monday, and I was supposed to leave and come home because the other daughter couldn't stay. And I just didn't want to go. And I'm glad I stayed. I just wanted a little bit more time with family. And sometimes, we're left with some longings that we can't get met, right? But I think what we're going to do is we're going to harness all your positive energy today. I'm going to try to give you some tips about how to use this as momentum moving forward. Because I think about 2023. I've got my new planner here, Jen. And I'm, prayerfully going to ask the Lord, like, how do I step into this professionally and personally? And what does that look like? It's a great time for prayerfulness and for moving forward. So, all right, do you want to read one of the quotes, Jen, and we can talk about it?
Yeah, I just posted them all. I kind of copied and pasted into the chat there. So this is, as you can see, I posted in there under Leslie's name. Do you see them in the chat there? So I said, what Diana had sent me is Thomas Wolfe, You Can't Go Home Again. So the first quote here was, and most important of all, for one who had taken so long to grow up, he thought he had learned not to be the slave to his emotions.
That's really a powerful one, I think. Because if you think you're kind of relatively emotionally strong, and then you get around your family of origin, and I think things get triggered that you had no idea were still there, right? And that speaks to that. And we speak a lot in our groups and in the coaching that we do about how not to be a slave to our emotions. And along with that, I would say our thoughts, because our thoughts and our emotions can be our biggest dagger, and there is a place for feeling your emotions, but we don't want to be a slave to go where they lead us, because they will take us down the tubes sometimes, right?
Yeah, I almost had that happen to me, but thankfully from my coaching practice, my own practice of emotional regulation, and everything that all of you here in Facebook land, all of you have taught me over this past year and a bit being on Leslie's team, and especially you, Diana, I think like a lot of us, I'm in southeastern Ontario in Canada, and we got walloped by that blizzard that you probably heard of on the news. And it completely derailed any travel plans. Our highways were shut down, which in my lifetime of 50 years, they have never done. They officially closed them. There was no getting anywhere. And as we did travel, eventually you could see cars in the ditch all over the place and rolled over. And it's a good thing we didn't venture out. All of that to say, when you're talking about that emotional stuff. So I was already feeling emotional to begin with because we had set plans going into the holidays in terms of itinerary, right? Like where we were going to be and when, and who that was going to involve. So I had to deal with the disappointment of finally giving up on getting to Ottawa to see my grandbabies. Okay. So there was the initial about that. And then as the day went on and we realized we weren't even going to get as far as my mom's, which is only an hour away, that was the acknowledgement that my mom was going to be overnight by herself for the first time ever at Christmas time, because my dad passed in 2021 of COVID. And we've always been together for Christmas, but not even to have my dad there with her as they hunkered down in this storm. So not only was I reeling from my own sense of disappointment, but I now was taking on and projecting what my mom must have felt. Yeah. Okay. I didn't have proof of that. Remember our thought journals. That wasn't necessarily the truth. Although I know my mom well enough. She was extremely hurt and disappointed that we couldn't all be together. And so now I'm taking that on, and I almost, like what you were saying, Diana, almost let it derail what was now in front of me. My new condo, here I am in my new digs, my kids and my son's girlfriend were all with us. We hunkered down, and I almost let it ruin it because it wasn't what I had planned. And I tell you, with all the help of you guys and everything you guys have taught me over this past year, I bucked up. I recognized that, hey, I'm going to make the most of this. We played games. We watched movies that, that some of my kids had never seen before, that were Christmas classics. I broke out food that I didn't even plan to have, and I will say this, a shout out to all those people that get teased for keeping bananas in their freezer. Like up if you've ever been teased about, or if you store bananas in your freezer, because
like fresh ones or like brownish ones,
old browning ones that I throw in the freezer, right? Okay, I had nothing planned for Christmas Day breakfast because we were supposed to be at my mom's and we had everything over there. I whipped up the best batch of banana bread ever. Because, again, I had to go with the flow and it was fun. And the kids were like, Mom, the house smells great. And anyway, sorry to take us offline like that. But here I am, what people think is, a professional coach. I should know better. And I was experiencing it for real. And I took what was right in front of me and I manifested what was going into the present, which I know what God would want me to do, and just relish in creating new memories right then and there. And so that is a real life example, as we're always real here, aren't we, Diana? But you had to miss your daughter and I had to miss my mom and deal with all of that. So, I let go of those expectations and it turned out to be wonderful. It really, really did. So our hearts are with you, just so you know that we live it and we experience it alongside of you, all in different ways, but the disappointment is real.
I always think that, maybe God has something else planned in those moments. I can't control what's happening or the logistics of all of those things. And so one of the things that I try to do is listen. And I think we get better and better at hearing from the Lord as we practice that. But, okay, Lord, what do you have? Just like you rolled with it, what do you have for me now? That this isn't, we're not meeting. What can I use this time for? What do I, someone said, cooking for hubby and watching Miracle on 34th Street. I mean, but for me, just settling in and resting a bit, watching some television is something I don't often afford myself the luxury of doing. So, or spending some extra time just reading, studying the Word, anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to the next quote because we've got a lot of comments.
Yes, do you have the next one in front of you?
Yeah. That is how it seemed to George Weber, who was never so assured of his purpose as when he was going somewhere on a train. And he never had the sense of home as much as when he felt that he was going there. It was only when he got there that his homelessness began.
Mm-hmm.
So What do you think that speaks to you? That I feel like I'm going home. I'm looking forward to this, whatever it is, with anticipation. And when I get there, I find I'm still lost.
Yeah. And it's what is it that we're looking for, I guess, too.
Yeah.
And how much weight do we put on that instead of looking at what's right in front of us? What is this? Well, if I use like an Indiana Jones term, it's like this going after the Holy Grail. Like, what are we always chasing after as opposed to just being settled and content with what's with us right here and now? Um,
Sometimes I feel like home is really a state of being. It's not a location.
yeah.
And while we are created for relationship and we're meant to be with others, we have to put some context around that. I would say healthy others that are able to love well and allow you to be who you are. But I also feel like there are some places in our heart and in our lives that were only met by the Lord. And, one of my favorite quotes is C.S. Lewis. I'm probably going to botch it a little bit here. But, he says that if I find myself longing for something that I can't quite fill, then it's a possibility that my longing isn't meant for this life. And I think he's speaking of longing to be with the Lord, where we'll sense completeness. So if you're feeling a little bit empty, a little bit lost, a little bit non-complete, it could be that spending some time just reaching out for the hand of God in your life, whatever that looks like, and can be a part of that, not a part of that solution, but the solution. Any thoughts on that, Jen?
Yeah, I really do. I It really does just set us up sometimes for it's like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, I guess is what I'm trying to say. When we set ourselves up for that, it can be listen, it's okay to dream and have that longing for something great and better, but I think it's knowing when to balance that, right? It's when to kind of know to let that go, even just momentarily, to settle into what's currently right in front of us, because otherwise we do get disappointed. Or as I mentioned the other day in a slightly different topic when we were all together here live, is expectations breed resentment, especially when we have expectations of others.
Yeah.
But I love what you said too, that home is a state of being. Home is a state of being. So I would love to hear in the chat if you guys can, whoever's listening, and
Or
even if you're on the replay here, put into the chat even just one or two words. Just what does home represent to you? Home. What does it feel like? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? I know my kids will sometimes come home in the middle of whatever, and depending on what I'm cooking, they'll go, "Mom, it smells like Christmas in here," and it brings it with them
brings joy.
joy.
All right, so I'm going to tell you one of my, while you're talking about home,
Yeah,
I'm going to dive into what works, because
yeah,
and then we'll get to your questions.
yep,
Is that okay? Is that a
yeah.
good?
Please,
All
yeah,
right.
let's hear what works. I want to hear.
So I'm all alone, right? I'm not going to see. I know that it's postponed, and I'm not going to see my kids, and my parents aren't around anymore. My sisters we're all scattered. It's too cold, really, to go out and venture. So I did something which I felt was self-protective, and I had to kind of play around with it. But I went into Spotify and I put Christian Christmas worship music.
Mhm.
And then I listened to that for a while. That kind of fed my spirit, fed my soul. And then I put on my all-time favorite is Bing Crosby Christmas. So for a little bit upbeat, kind of bouncing around the house, I'm telling you, ladies, it works.
Mm,
Ministering to your heart with music
mhm.
can really bring a lightness to your soul, because I wasn't going to allow my thoughts to dictate where I went that day, and to get trapped into a negative sequence of this isn't how Christmas should be, or it's any of that stuff. And so for me, that was one self-protective measure. So let's see what they came up with, Jen.
Yeah, well, I'm hearing that home means family, comfortable surroundings,
Mm,
security, laughter, a safe place for laughter or sorrow. Thank you, Mary Jane. I appreciate that. Feeling all the feelings, that's part of life, and it's part of being at home where you have the sanctuary, if you will, to experience those things. So peace, I'm
I
hearing
like
peace, comfort. Yeah, I think we're
comfort and
we're we're seeing
security.
a trend there.
Yeah, a
Comfort.
place of safety,
Yes.
comfort, and security. That's huge.
Yeah. So it can be with those people that bring us, that sense of peace and comfort, family that's not blood. Yep, my sisters in Christ. Thanks, Tiffany.
Well,
Absolutely.
that's very biblical. You know what Jesus said about who his brothers and sisters were,
Yep, that's right.
right? Those that do the will of my Father in heaven, belonging.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
I just read something, or I kind of float through my phone at night, and I get those memes that come up. I don't even know if it's Instagram or Facebook, but there was one by, oh, what's her name, the social scientist down south. Oh,
Brene Brown.
yeah, she was talking about belonging. She said
Hmm.
something about, like, if you're feeling like you don't belong, you will certainly find that out there. She said belonging is a place that you harbor within yourself. I'm wondering,
Hmm.
yeah. And so when I think of belonging, I love that. And I do feel like when you're with certain individuals, whether it's your community here, your community at church, we do need places of belonging as well, right? Where we feel like they minister to who we are, right?
Hmm.
I think
Yeah.
that's where belonging is met.
Yeah. I love that. I really do.
Yeah.
And so I'm seeing belonging in the chat there for sure.
Mm. Look at
Children's
this.
laughter, train whistles, dinners
I
of
wonder where
children.
Karina is. She said she dressed warm and went out walking in the snow, just examining the snowflakes.
Oh, yes.
Nature is so amazing for really connecting to yourself and connecting to the wonder and the mystery of our creation. I love that.
Yeah. She says, I feel seen, cared, and loved. Oh,
So we
don't we
got
all?
music, we got nature. These are your tools, ladies. We're going
Yeah.
to explore your core.
um, yeah, the nature, the experience of being around people that just aren't necessarily blood related, too. So we can be intentional. Can I use that word, Diana? Intentional about who we surround ourselves with. That we don't, I think family can also, as you mentioned towards the beginning, that, with being around other people, there's potential for drama, which then can ensue, the disappointments.
Triggers
But if
drama.
we're intentional about who we surround ourselves with, then we can be choosy, right? So it's our church family, it's our sisters in Christ, as we've heard. It's tapping into Facebook, as we, a lot of these viewers and listeners here today are also in our Conquer group, and where we can band together and just love on each other in that way too. So I think that's definitely reaching out for support of trusted friends and family, blood or not, blood related or not, I think is really important too, as a way that works to uplift us out of that disappointment.
Some beautiful words here.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to do a little plug, and then we're going to come back to this.
Yeah.
Because you will, if you anchor in who you are, and you do your work, which is really kind of learning more about yourself and what triggers me, how I can be grounded in myself and who I am in Christ, the less likely you are to allow your emotions to go a little crazy when we're in dramatic environments or other unhealthier people relationally kind of call us into chaos. And that's a little bit of the reason why we're here today. We want to still offer you an opportunity to join our E2C group, which teaches you in a very structured way how to do that work. And it's a transformative experience that you will go through over 6 months every other week with us. We just don't have too many spots left. So
No, not
um,
a few daytime spots left, I think, and
yeah,
maybe one or two in the evening groups. I'm not sure yet, but very few spots left.
it's an amazing experience. I have only positive things that I've heard from the women who've been in our group. And so let's move on and talk more about disappointment. Um, let's see. Oh, Katrina. I think it was Katrina who was also watching. Was that you who was watching the snowflakes? I think she said she was traveling and only had gas station food.
Mm. Yep. Although I will say some of the gas stations that my husband and I fly into, where he's a recreational pilot, they have the best butter tarts ever. So not all gas station food is bad. You
What
can
is
go
a
on a
butter tart? It must be a
Oh,
Canadian
sorry.
thing.
Yes, I forget. I always forget. Butter
A
tarts.
butter tart?
You
No,
guys don't know what butter tarts are. I always forget that. Okay, I'll bring you
it's
one,
so
Diana. When I
interesting.
come to see you, I'm going to bring you some.
It's so interesting to meet people from all over. We really get to do that a lot, don't we?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so what else works? So put into the chat what works for you in terms of overcoming disappointment. So far we've come up with, surrounding ourselves with worship music or any type of music, let's be honest, any music that's going to pump us up and bring us joy. Okay.
Yep.
Worship being the most ideal, I'm sure. We talked about getting in touch with nature, recognizing God's greatness in
Yes.
all that he creates, including us, and right down to the uniqueness of those snowflakes. How cool is that? What else do we do or can we do? We talked about surrounding ourselves with support, sisters in
Yeah.
Christ, family and friends, or, friends are the family we choose is often what we hear, right? So we can be
So,
intentional about who we pick and choose to be around us.
yeah, let me say something about that, Jen. I
Hmm.
mean, sometimes I think when you're feeling down and your mind is a little clouded and you can't think clearly, I think it's important to take some time whenever you can, and your thoughts can come a little bit more clearly, to identify who those people are in your life that you feel you can be yourself with, that you feel you have a sense of safety, you're welcomed, you're celebrated. Because I don't think, I know that it's a truth that when you're in having some depressive thoughts, you can't get to that stuff as easily. So you can go to that page in your journal when your feelings are wanting to draw you in another direction and say, no, this is the truth. This is where I feel home. This is where I feel welcome, celebrated, and accepted. And I want to read this by Karina, wrote this in the chat. There's a really positive comment. We are not alone. We have Christ. We have each other. We are learning and growing. Look up and forward, not backwards or necessarily to the present. Necessarily to the present. Or not, let's see, not backwards or necessarily to the present. Look up to Christ and forward. Where is he leading me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're never alone when we are never alone.
We feel it. Sometimes we feel that, no doubt, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Something else that works that I just was reminded of, Diana, as you were talking about when we do kind of start to go there and we're not seeing things as clearly as we might otherwise. And so it's harder to tap into some of those things that do work. This is more of a preemptive thing that I often coach my women on, is something I called sort of those dangerous emotions, so to speak. So if disappointment is one of yours and it takes us downwards a little bit,
yeah.
and I ask that we prepare in advance for a plan. How am I going to overcome those things, so that when you're not as clear-headed or you're so down that you resist even those things that work, if you can journal, if you can jot down on a cue card somewhere, or you do have the mental capacity to draw from up here in those moments, have a plan. When I get disappointed, I'm going to, and have a three-pronged plan in place, so that if one doesn't work, you have a go-to and a go-to. So prayer, like we just talked about, you're never alone. If you're feeling disappointment and being alone, you're not alone when you've got the Bible with you, whether it's through your scripture that you know in your head, whether it's an app on your phone, or the actual good book of the Bible, you've got that with you. So it could be calling a friend, it could be whatever, but you decide what that plan is whenever you start to go into those types of emotions, disappointment being one of them. When you experience the disappointment, experience it. It's a God-given emotion, but then have a plan to come out of it. But to do that, you have to have planned in advance. So like, as Diana's saying, you're not really in a place to kind of think of those things in those moments. So have them thought through beforehand, and that can work.
Along with that, preparing in advance, if you've lost someone this year and this is your first, I specifically think your first year without your loved ones is challenging because your emotions creep up on you and you don't know if grief is coming. know that grief is coming. Each is a first. And how do you want to celebrate that life? How do I want to move through this and acknowledge that person that's not at the table or that I can't call? And I think being proactive, as Jen said, about that specifically also can be very helpful so that you're not blindsided by those feelings of loss.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some questions, Jen.
Yeah, let's go to some questions and then we'll come back to some more ideas too, and keep putting your ideas into the chat as we were talking as to what works for you to help overcome some disappointment, especially during the holidays. So what do we see here for one of our first questions, Diana?
It's can you guys see me looking to the left? It's because I have another computer with questions on it.
Yeah, I've got two screens going here.
Can you go deeper into explaining how expectations breed disappointment? Shouldn't we have expectations to know what we will put up with or not? Or is that more of a boundary? Do boundaries and expectations go hand in hand? So many questions and smiley face. So I'll start, and we're going to go back and forth about this because I know Jen has some great thoughts. Expectations, I believe, can breed disappointment when they're not in line with reality. The expectation that Christmas is going to look like it did for me in the past.
Can you pause there for a second? I need you to say that again. That was really good.
Okay.
What did you say? Expectations are something when they're not aligned with reality, or disappointing when they're not aligned with reality.
They breed disappointment when they are not in line with reality.
In line with reality. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you, but that was really profound. I like that one sentence statement. It was good.
So what am I clinging to that's not realistic? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And if someone's always treated me poorly, or if I show up, which has happened to me because I'm the youngest, and so a lot of times I get spoken over. I used to be soft-spoken. Now I just don't go where I can't be heard. But I used to get spoken over a lot because I'm soft-spoken in that, right? And so, why would I expect to engage in a conversation with a group of individuals or family members that don't really include me? So, in the past when I would go, or if I knew someone, which, was the truth, would use sarcasm and put downs, I wouldn't expect it to be different. I would go because I chose to go and be with other people, but know that might be coming in my direction. So I might need my armor on. Stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And if your spouse has always been a jerk around the holidays with the kids and stuff, just expect that as, yep, that's what he does. I'm not going to allow my body and my heart and my mind to fret about it, get all worked up about it. That's just what he does. I'm going to expect. So for me, that's a part of it. And then she's asking, shouldn't we have expectations to know what we'll put up with or not? Certainly. Yeah. Like if someone's putting me down or it's uncomfortable, I'm going to have the expectation that I can leave when I want to leave. In fact, we're going to meet the kids and they're not kids, they're in their 20s. My two adult daughters, we're going to go somewhere. And I said to my daughter, do you want to just meet and we'll drive together? My daughter is hysterical. Her go-to is, nope, I want an out. And that's her thing. She plans for it. Like if something's going on and she doesn't like what's happening, she's got her car, she can go. And that's a boundary she set for herself for her own wellness. And, would I love her to drive with me? Yeah, but it's more important that she has that sense and feeling of she can get what she needs and that sense of control. So
yeah, no, I think I love that. Another take on exactly what you said is I think the context that we're talking about here, where you balance the expectations that breed resentment or disappointment versus the expectations, those standards that we want to set for ourselves to have boundaries. I think the difference, what we're talking about here is one is sort of coming from a victim stance. Why do they always do this to me? Why are they always, causing upheaval at the dinner table? Why is it always happening to me? That when you have these expectations based in reality or not, just that you're just giving away all that power you're putting it all dependent on your joy is so dependent on someone or something else doing something. That's where the resentment and the disappointment can wreak havoc. Whereas if you're doing things with the full idea of what is reality, what is real here going on, you can still have those expectations, those standards as to which you want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
But you can go into it knowing that, okay, I'm choosing now. I'm no longer a victim. I know what I'm getting into here. I'm choosing to go to that family dinner. But if Uncle so-and-so gets drunk and belligerent and starts name calling and getting into politics at the table, that's a no-no for me. So there's the boundary. No politics at the dinner table. I will politely excuse myself and go for a walk. So you're not then living in the resentment and disappointment. You kind of knew it was coming, and if it was going to come, you had a plan. So there's no more resentment. You may be like, oh, he did it again for a hot minute, but it's not going to consume you.
That's very well said, Jen. I think a part of that is, and what I heard you saying was a theme of just what I can't control. Like, I can control how I react to this, but I can't control what someone else does. And sometimes, if I'm expecting someone to behave in a certain way, and I don't get what I need, and I feel like I can't control that, there's a disappointment there.
Yeah.
I'm on this theme probably for the last easily 5 years or 10 years to just allowing people to be who they are, and accepting the truth that they do what they do. And so my I don't know if the mantra is the right word, but when someone does something that they do, if it's a jerkish move or not, or they're gossipy, my outward breath is, yeah, that's what you do. That's who you are. That's just me accepting. I don't have to be in it. I don't have to participate in it. I don't have to walk with it, but I do accept that someone else is behaving how they behave.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there's another tip. There's another tip, right? To overcome disappointment is managing those expectations, maybe accepting people for who they are in a gracious way, not in a defeatist way. We're not talking about being defeated here. We're talking about the power of choice, that empowerment within ourselves to go, you know what? This is what we're faced with. I can't change anybody else but me. And I'm going to love on that person for who they are, however they show up, but I can do it from a distance with healthy boundaries. So that is something, boundaries, by the way, for those that are listening, there's just not enough hours in the day to talk about all things boundaries, as we know, but we do a much deeper dive and really get a hold of these when we do our Empowered to Change group that we were talking about earlier, coming up from January to June. So we know that boundaries is a big topic that we can only just touch on today. So I wanted to let you know there's more to come on that if you join our Empowered to Change group.
I will tell you, I've had personal practice with that, and we had a family member that was just too much, and what it did for me was I could walk away and I could say, I didn't go there emotionally like, oh my gosh, this is happening again. I can't deal with this. It was more like, yeah, that's who you are. A very, very different in your nervous system. I'm going to disappear from screen here for a minute to give my dog some water. She's an aging dog.
And her precious dog too. I think you have her on like homeopathic medicine or something too, or chiropractic or something. It's just, when I come back, I want to be Diana's dog. Am I allowed to say that? In other words, that dog is well loved. No, I appreciate that. So
where my money goes.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So there's so that's add that to our list then of things that we can do when we're facing disappointment, is just accepting people for who they are in a loving way.
I don't have to sit with them. I don't have to walk with them, but I can accept what they do and who they are. It's their choice. I get to choose differently. Thank goodness, right?
Yeah, it was kind of like just a quick, totally different example, but I think it's important here. I think it's a good one. Whereas my husband knows that I like things tidy and organized, and I used to be called like Martha Stewart on steroids. That was a past life. I've let some of that go, but I still own a label maker. But my husband would kind of go, "Oh, are you okay, Jen?" If we went to someone's house that was like really, really untidy, dirty, whatever. And I'd be like, no, I'm fine. Because I don't have to clean it. It's not mine to clean. I'm there to see that person. I'm there to just experience them. So I can separate out, what I own and what I need to do to feel good and to feel tidy, if you will. And then I can accept what else is going on around me and still participate in that. I don't get so consumed by what's happening in that environment that it ruins my time. It doesn't, because I know I can step away from that environment physically, from that mess, and walk away to somewhere else that's more conducive to my psychology. So, figuratively or literally, a mess is a mess. And if you address it so much as I can step away from that, you can be present and you can be engaged, knowing that you have an out, just like your daughter has her own car. Right?
She's hysterical. The other thing I do for her is if we do drive together, I let her drive because she has a need to feel like she's in control. It's an emotional need that's not unrealistic for her, and it's fine for me. You can drive, you can be in control.
Yeah.
I can have that, right? So let's see. Do we have any more questions, ladies? I think.
And Tamara says too, and Tamara, I think you were on with me the other day too, when Elise and I were on, and it was, I think you might have said this the other day, or someone else did too, and I think it's a good point. Tamara says, I was telling myself, be more like Mary and not like Martha.
Yeah.
Be in the moment. Be in the moment. I love those types of things. So, because we can all get caught up in those sort of expectations of what the Hallmark Channel puts out for us, that kind of thing. And you know what? I'm a Hallmark movie junkie, but I also know it's not my reality. So I don't expect then my family's going to act like that. I do it as a little escape kind of thing. It does bring me joy, but I can recognize too that for some people that can wreak havoc on their hearts to know that they don't have that, or they haven't experienced that, or they think they may never will. So our hearts are with you, especially for this time of year, because there is a lot of pressure, commercialized or otherwise, to have these perfect days when in fact we're grieving the loss of someone, the loss of a relationship, the loss of a job, maybe something big going on. And Christmas, doesn't save us from all of those disappointments. So I understand, it's real.
So here's something. In my mind, sometimes things are better than they really were. And I recall, and I'm not going to get specific here because this is a public page, but I recall recently, like being invited to do something, or no, wait, maybe wanting to be invited to do something, and then it occurred to me, did I really enjoy that, or was it just tradition for me? Like I had the expectation that this is what the gathering should look like and this is how it should be. And then I just kind of went back into my memory and I'm like, did I really like all those family gatherings that we used to get together? We can't have now because some people are gone. But it was like, no. And so and that's one of the notes from this article is that, where is it? Use a reality check. Sometimes we forget the good old days weren't always good. Like I liked the sense of family, but would I have rather been doing something with my whole day, like on Thanksgiving? Probably. I'm a loner. I like to sit and read. Give me a good book and a fireplace and I'm happy. Right. So sometimes we talk it up in our mind. I don't know. Do you do that, Jen?
Yeah. Is that what you were referring to as the nostalgic disappointment? I call it romanticizing. Yeah, I do this. I do the same thing. Yeah, when my husband and I first got married, we redid an old century home. A limestone home is big here in my part of the country, and very historic by our standards here. So it was about 150 years old. And I look back on that house now and how beautiful we could make it now with the resources we have, or now with HGTV and all the ideas and everything. And I get all caught up in, wouldn't that be great to go back there? And then I remember we had mice and bats and, and I'm like, so you can romanticize some of that stuff and forget, what the reality was. And my reality was I wanted out of that house because of the mice, because of the bats, because of how far it was from town, because of the, the money pit that it was. And so that's kind of where I have to keep myself and go back to that reality. that you mentioned earlier, is keeping ourselves in what's actually happening, going on around us. So anyway, is that what you meant though by that nostalgic?
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of dropped into like, how did I really feel when we spent all day like that and with certain people? And I was like, I do like the sense of family, but it wasn't all that I remember it to be. It wasn't all, yeah, the real experience of it was very different than how I recall it nostalgically now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it helped me to kind of step into like, what do I want to be now? What do I really, and I think for me, that's not a question of just what do I really want, but also what does God want for me? It takes a minute for me to think about that. I don't always make the right choices thinking that I'm hearing clearly, but I always know when I make good choices and, because I do experience a real positive result. Here's one more tip. All right, you ready for no? Because we're not getting many questions. So if you have questions, ask us. We can try to stump the coaches. We can do that. This one is from Avoiding Nostalgic Disappointment is use positive memories, even clouded in nostalgia as they may be, to look forward and build, creating an even more positive future. And I love that because many of us are stuck with what didn't work or what we've left behind. And I think that I always say that as long as you're not pushing up daisies, you have a chance for your life to be different. And how do you want to use that momentum moving forward? Like, even if you've made mistakes as a parent, you're still a parent. How do you want to be that loving, connected, available parent today? And, one of the ways maybe we could, as we're waiting we do have a question, but we can talk a little bit about what does stepping into 2023 look like? How do you want to plan for that?
Yeah, let's hang on to that one and we'll kind of finish up with that.
Okay.
As we close out towards the top of the hour here, but we still have about 13 minutes left. So
I'm going to read this question and let you do it.
Sure.
Oh, okay. There's 2 questions. Thanks for your questions, guys. I'll come back to you, Natalia. It says, when frustrated expectations are not just disappointing but hurtful, how do you keep the hurt from being stressful, especially on your physical well-being?
Good question, because we do know now, both scientifically and anecdotally, how much stress, that emotional stress, does wreak havoc on our physical well-being. So I really appreciate you bringing this up. That's a really great point. So I think some of our listeners will have lots of ideas for this. So I encourage you to support this person's question and answer it in the chat. But it is maybe taking a brief time out. So as those expectations are brewing, as they're not being met, and you can see them coming, listen to your body. Listen. So sometimes it's might be an elevated heart rate. So what do you need to do to regulate your heart rate, to lower it a little bit? So sometimes it's deep breathing. Sometimes it's fresh air. Sometimes it's a meditation that you can do. Other times, more longer, sort of long-term types of things that your body might be telling you is your fatigue. So go get some rest. If you're not having the normal energy that you do, that you normally have at this time of year, that spunk or whatever, that might be your body telling you something. Listen to your body. If you've got a headache, you've got muscle aches and pains, and it's not related to, say, a flu or something like that, book a massage if that's something that is appropriate for you. Anything that you can do to relieve that tension in your body is very, very important for not only in the moment, but for your long-term care of yourself, because those cortisol levels, as we get into the biochemistry of things, adrenaline serves a purpose in the short term. It gets us away from that bear that's chasing us, right? But long-term cortisol and adrenal levels are not sustainable, and they do start to really wreak havoc on us. So Diana, what else would you say? Because I know a lot of that can be tied into what you know so well about trauma too, as it's stored up in the body.
When you're talking about cortisol levels, one of the best interventions that comes to my mind is weightlifting. There's something about weightlifting that adjusts a little bit of your body chemistry. It's how I made it when my cortisol levels were a little bit crazy. So I would do it like 3 times a week at the suggestion of one of my doctors. And it made a huge difference for me regulating that chemistry that was out of control.
Great.
Um, it was also good to get out. So, and I also used a program which, I don't know the background of it. It uses binaural beats, and it's called Mind Amend, MINDAMEND. I found it on YouTube, and while I was weightlifting, I would find one that was pleasant for my ears, and it helped my mood state to shift because it was a pretty pervasive bout of anxiety that was triggered by cortisol levels.
Wow,
The
that's
other
a good resource and free, right? Not all this stuff costs money.
It's free. So frustrated, disappointing, that are hurtful, and you're feeling it physically in your body. I use any somatic practice that you can find. In my work as a somatic practitioner, I use different techniques for calming the body, and one of them is just bilateral tapping.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yes.
Just breath work and just bilateral tapping will settle you in and just allow your body to kind of just calm. It's not magic. It's just really kind of refocusing and addressing your nervous system needs and just settling kind of in. The other thing is, which I did, ladies, this happened to me this week. So I had a good cry. I don't cry easy. But I had a lot of emotions, and I did have some unmet expectations, just as this question that you've asked, frustrated expectations. And what I did was I bawled. I did a Bible study, some time with the Lord, not a Bible study. I just spent time with God, prayed, and I cried. I did exactly what I'm telling you to do. I don't cry hard, but I was able to, and that was a great release. And used some tapping. And then I discussed my thoughts with someone to gain a little bit more clarity. And certainly my thoughts were a bit distorted, and that clarity was helpful. I did it in a way where I didn't go through all the drama. I just asked some questions, like, am I, and that was just also helpful. And a part of that was I had some expectations that needed to get in line with the reality of where we are at today. I'm always happy when I can cry because I don't cry easy. And I shut myself in the bedroom. I was visiting, me, my dog, and I. Miley's been through it all with me. But, yeah, I had running mascara. I don't usually cry like that. It was pretty good.
Oh, I love that. I call it the purging cry.
Yeah.
Some people call it, I think Oprah called it the ugly cry. We've heard that term before. The ugly cry, the purging cry, cathartic. We've heard it's getting it out. And sometimes it's not even, it's obviously triggered by some sort of sense of sadness or whatever, but it just keeps coming and coming, and it feels so good. There's no shame in that. Male, female, do it. Sometimes I've actually, it was funny, as our partners get to know us even better than we know ourselves sometimes. And my husband will walk into our space, and I might have some movie on, and he'll be like, do you feel like crying today? It's because I intentionally put this movie on it. And I'm like, he might be right. And I'm not kidding. I actually reflected on that. And I thought I was in a space where I just did need to evoke some emotions to help me purge. And subconsciously, I put this movie I already know is a tearjerker on. I knowingly put that on the television from my DVR or whatever you call it. And sure enough, he knows I'm going to cry. And I'm like, interesting. And so I think it is an actual practical
jealous tool. You can cry with movies. I can't even cry with movies.
Yeah, certain ones. But I'm saying this is a good tip, allowing ourselves or whatever we can do to feel that moment and purge some of that stuff. I think it's really, really a healthy thing to do. So I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing all of these tips.
One thing, I'm not a fan of Oprah, but I did come up with something on Instagram as I was floating through that she said, and I thought, I'm going to try this. So I have started it, and I've done 2 so far. But I've never really done a gratitude journal, and Leslie talks about this a bit as well. But she said get really specific. I'm grateful for healthy skin, but what about your skin? Are you healthy? Are you grateful for? Get very specific. So I tried to do that, and I try to do maybe 6 a day. And that is a shift and a refocus on what's working, what's good, what I haven't noticed. And it's also can be really a praise to the Lord for what is good. And I don't know, it just helped. Like yesterday, I put in my journal, I was really worried about my dog. I had to take care of my dog, but, her, I overdid it with some treatment for her and her leg wasn't working. And I was upset. I slept on the floor for 2 nights with her because we have a lot of steps in our house and she couldn't do steps. And one of my was that she made it. She was visiting at my daughter's house as well, and there's a lot of steps. She did really well, and you know what? It might sound superficial, but for me, like I carry all that anxiety when she's not doing well. At some point we're going to have to deal with, the decline of all of us. But just being grateful and just thanking God that she did okay, we did okay. There were some other things on there as well, but maybe you can put in the chat what you're grateful for.
Yeah, I love that. And as we're just nearing the end of our time together today too, definitely, Diana, I'm a big fan of gratitude. I don't consciously write in a journal 3 things I'm grateful for as a practice, but I do practice gratitude wherever I am, just randomly in the moment, both as just a maintenance sort of program, if you will. I don't wait until things are disappointing to find my gratitude. So I practice gratitude on a regular basis, just mentally, but definitely in times of disappointment, you can just kind of go, okay, all right, that is upsetting. Oh, like feel it. Like I said earlier, it's a God-given emotion. It's telling you something. Feel it. It's okay. But then to get yourself out of it, remember I talked about having a plan to get yourself out of it. Well, what am I grateful for? What around me? So that is disappointing, sure, but what isn't disappointing? What's really good around here in my surroundings? And
one of my friends, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No. I just think that's a really great way.
One of my friends I've known forever, her husband said when I saw him, this was not recently, but I saw him and he's complaining, about getting old a little bit. And he's a sweet man. But he was just noticing his hair loss and all this. And I just looked at him and I said, I'm just glad some things are working. I mean, seriously, it could be so much worse. And sometimes we don't know that,
Yeah. Well, it's like you don't know what you've got until it's gone kind of thing. Like even just with the blizzard the other night, there were many, many, many people in just my city alone, let alone across the province, that were without power.
Oh yeah. We've had some tragedy here.
Right. And so I was grateful that our lights only flickered here because as I said, as I'm baking that banana bread and I'm, rejigging my whole Christmas plans, that would have been another disappointment to then have the power go out. Right? Like layer upon layer. So I was very grateful for that. So, well, we only have a couple of minutes left. And we had said just a little while ago that we were also going to maybe talk,
we could probably do another hour on this.
Yeah, I know, but leave us with some good things going into 2023.
Yeah. What do we want to carry moving forward? What is a thought? What is an intention? What is something you want to move toward?
Give us some ideas too. What do you want for 2023 going into this? So the opposite of disappointment for you might be, and put that into the chat as going forward for 2023. I think, Karen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Leanne and Susan are with us live again on Friday, I think. But this is the last of it for you and I think, for 2022 together.
We're not seeing us till next year.
Yeah.
So, you know what, ladies? I think my groups might be full. I think I might have a Friday spot available. But we've got some really wonderful coaches on our team, and this community of women are amazing. And the 6-month coaching group is, if you have the time to invest in yourself and do some growth work, it's phenomenal. I had a coach who was a sweetheart in one of my classes, and she said, I don't have any relational difficulties. I just love this material, and what Leslie puts out is so rich that I just have to do this class. And but you will have to devote some time and energy to it to get the most out of it. I love this and saying I want to experience more Holy Spirit given joy.
Yes.
Not feeling I deserve or having any sense of entitlement.
Yeah. Yeah. Humility, maybe. I don't know if that's the exact opposite there that you're trying to get at, Julie, but yeah, something like that. Reconciliation. Yay, Kathy. I pray that's true.
Yeah.
Any sort of reconciliation. So yeah, so we'll just keep flooding the chat even after we sign off. Keep flooding in the comments, all things that you're grateful for and looking forward to in 2023, because sometimes your words really speak to someone else, and it's something else that's God given that somebody else really needed to hear. So please don't hold back. This is really, really important, both to my heart, Diana's heart, and those that are listening and watching, even on the replay. So
take a pause one moment. Take a pause and see what comes up for you, Jen.
Oh, I feel like 2023 for me is, it may sound cliche, but I'm really embracing newness. Newness. I'll leave it at that, but it's stemming from my new surroundings with my condo, newness in my coaching practice. I've had some thoughts as I've been planning for 2023 about different directions I want to take it, or different structure I want to put around that. So some newness, newness with relationships, with some friendships that I guess I'm going to a new church now. So newness is a big thing for me. What about you, Diana?
Well, when I was letting you pause, what came up for me immediately was being kinder to myself. And I think in thinking of allowing myself to do the things that I teach others to do, and to do them with intention, taking time out for me, doing things that are enjoyable, on taking care of my body. I mean, it's not that I don't, but I, as people helpers, sometimes we're the last ones to take, you know what I mean?
True.
So yeah,
Very
just
true.
being kind to me. And one of my things that, working on my self-esteem is, my mantra is, I'm a beautiful soul. And so taking that in and believing God's love for you is doable. But yeah.
I love that. I love that. So, well, thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today midweek. And as we approach the end of 2022, which I know has had ups and downs for many of us for many reasons. So I thank you for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you in 2023 on some of these broadcasts, but also in our Empowered to Change groups and other groups that we have coming up in the next year. It's going to be great. So any parting words before we go, Diana?
My only parting word is really prayerfully consider how you want to move forward, and whether you join ETC or not, allow the Lord to speak to your heart. Enter his gates and the gates of 2023 with thanksgiving and prayer. Yes. And we do care deeply about you. That's why we do what we do, right?
That's right. That's why we're in the helping profession that we are. So thank you all. Happy New Year. Karen, thank you as always for just being such great support, and that go-to. Karen does her magic. You guys just give a shout out to Karen too, from behind the scenes, and capturing all your questions and the quotes and everything else. So happy New Year to you, Karen, and to all of those that are listening on the replay. We pray that you have a prosperous and healthy 2023. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.